Career politicians are destroying the economy. Now, the reason that's happening is because career politicians, they don't know how to do anything else. All they know is politics, elected office, winning a popularity contest every 2, 4, or 6 years. And if they're able to do that, then they get back in office, and there's very little accountability uh, for them if they're able to stay in office for at least 2 terms. Then it's pretty much a lock. Doesn't matter what happens to your economy of your city, your state, or even your country. Doesn't matter, what type of environment is fostered that either promotes business or, causes businesses to suffer. Case in point, Baltimore City. Now, the city I'm very familiar with, so I'm going to talk about it. Baltimore City has a mayor, Mr. Brandon Scott. Brandon Scott is a career politician. He was a city councilman, and he served in that function for a better part of a decade. And then he went and he ran for mayor. He's not that old. Now, Mr. Scott is not, I don't believe he's in his mid-30s, but he's got the command of the city of Baltimore with a multi-billion-dollar budget. Don't care where you live. You may have heard of some of the violence in Baltimore that is running people out of the city, both from the standpoint of, residents and businesses alike. There's a section of the city called Fells Point. Now, this is for those who like to do the bar hopping scene. It's a collection of bars and little night spots, things like that. Well, recently they came under siege, crime-wise, and the business owners down there said, hey, we're not going to pay our taxes unless we get some redress, unless we get some action on the crime that's going on down here. Well, the career politician, Mr. Brandon Scott, not understanding business, he doesn't understand business. He called for a meeting, didn't show up at the meeting, and now people are PO'd about that. So this shows you that Scott doesn't understand the relationship between the business community and what the city is able to do then for the citizenry in terms of services. He doesn't get the relationship. He's one of these individuals, one of these new crops politicians who thinks that the policy side, politics, government is able to serve all of the needs of the people. And we know that's not the case. If you look at the bios of all of the people on the Baltimore City Council, you've got a PhD and a young lady who is educated in a scientific medical field. Other than that, you have a collection of individuals, and the PhD has never been in the private sector. He's been in academia, where theory rules, but not practical application. The City Council of Baltimore, as I would bet that most cities, most urban centers these days are made up of people who, again, are in academia or went to work for government straight after college or took the political science courses. They went to work for a politician. That's what you'll find on the Baltimore City Council. Even the gentleman with the PhD, he went straight into academia. So there's a deficit of business knowledge at that local level, and it is resulting in people fleeing the city, residents fleeing the city, businesses fleeing the city. And when that happens, a tax base is eroded, and you're not able to do as much for the citizens who remain. Okay, so that's what's going on in microcosm in Baltimore City. The career politicians are hurting small businesses especially. Large businesses, they can navigate a little bit easier because they got a lot of money to throw at problems like this. Even if there is some sort of legislation that's not in their favor, they can throw mind power at it to figure out how to advantage themselves. Small businesses typically cannot do that. So you see where $15 an hour minimum wage, for example. Sure, Walmart is fine with that because they know the mom and pops can't pay it. And if mom and pops can't pay $15 an hour minimum wage, then this means that they'll have to close. And that'll mean more business for Walmart, Target, the big boys. So don't think just because you're in the same business as one of the big conglomerates that you are, in the same boat as them, because you're not. And career politicians make sure that that is the case, because we have a president right now who, he's been in elected office longer than I've been alive. He has no private sector experience, okay? And he's not unique, okay? A lot of the senators, Congress especially, the lower house, the House of Representatives, these are people who do not have experience in the world that produces. Politicians don't produce anything but a lot of hot air and more and more and more red tape and regulation. So we always try to come out of these things with some knowledge, how to navigate these situations. First of all, you're going to need to really examine who you're voting for, because if you are voting for people based off of their personality, that obviously is not going to work. Politician comes to your church, hums a few bars of a Negro spiritual, and you don't see him again for 4 years because he got your vote. Kisses a few babies, that sort of thing. Got a politician, a state delegate that lives right down the street from me, about 7 doors away. Nice guy. I mean, a nice guy. I smoke cigars with him sometimes, get a beer with him sometimes. I'm not voting for him, because although this individual does own a business, a very prosperous business, as a matter of fact, and I really, enjoy this guy's company. But when he's down there in our state capital of Annapolis, actually writing legislation, too often he is writing it and he's acting in a manner that's even antithetical to his own interest as a small business owner. So I can't support that. Now we can, have a drink together, and I hope he understands that he has been able to thus far, and I'm sure he will continue to. But you don't need to give your vote. Your vote is very powerful, and it's attached to the almighty dollar if you are a business owner. You've got to understand that. So examine the career politicians. How long have they been out there doing what they're doing? Do they have experience in anything else that would lead you to believe that they have your best interest in mind, or at least understand your situation as an entrepreneur, as a business owner? If you don't get the impression that they do from the facts on the ground, their bio, their history, then steer clear. America is a gigantic, multi-trillion-dollar corporation. This is a business, all right? Don't get it twisted. And right now, we've got leadership at the local, state, and at the federal level that don't understand that clearly, okay? And it's working out to be a big time detriment for this country. Now, again, going back to Baltimore City, crime is absolutely out of control. And you see that in many cities. You see it in Chicago, for example. You're seeing more of it in New York, where it was stable for many years, and now it has reverted back into, a really high crime environment for violent crimes even. Now, if you're a business owner, how are you going to navigate that? Do you really want to be in an environment where, politicians are making decisions that ignore a favorable business environment or a favorable business climate? You got a lot of people out there talking about, oh, well, businesses are evil, this, that, and the other. The same people who say this wear Nikes produced in sweatshops in China and have Apple products. I'll never forget the Occupy Wall Street movement. You saw every other person had an Apple product. And it's like, really? Whatever. So there's a big time disconnect in terms of what business does, which is provide value to the marketplace. A lot of times provides jobs, either in the form of direct W-2 employment opportunities or contractor jobs. And when that happens, when the customer comes in and buys something, usually there's a sales tax attached to it. There is in the state of Maryland. When the employee gets a check, there's taxes that come out of that check. The employer has to pay certain taxes, okay? Especially depending on if they have private property, real estate, as an example. So doing more to foster a favorable business environment, especially small business, which is the engine of America. There are more small businesses than there are large businesses for now. I fear that might change in the future, but fostering a favorable environment actually benefits the government's ability to generate revenue in the form of taxation. But you've got a lot of politicians, the mayor in Baltimore, for example, who do not understand that fundamental and very elementary element of macroeconomics. So be careful who you vote for. It matters, okay? It really matters. Do research. You are basically putting a person in place that's going to be kind of a quasi partner in your business. And you cannot afford to make mistakes on that, because if you do, you'll be in a situation like many of the people in Baltimore City right now who own businesses and have to decide whether they abandon ship and set up shop elsewhere. And that costs money, and you spend time doing that. You're going to lose in the short term opportunity cost, because in that move you got to set up shop elsewhere where you feel safe, where your clientele feels safe. But if you're being taxed out the wazoo like they do in Baltimore City, highest tax jurisdiction in the state, and you're not receiving the services, and your clients are too afraid to come to your place of business, what else can you do? All right, food for thought. Talk to you soon.